For over 6 centuries, the Roman Empire ruled the ancient world. Its armies conquered vast territories, its roads connected continents, and its citizens enjoyed the most extravagant spectacles in history. Among them stood one of the most iconic and brutal institutions ever created, the gladiatorial games. This is the story of the gladiators, who they were, where they came from, how they lived, fought, and died, and how sometimes they managed to win something greater than victory, their freedom. Before we begin, if you love history and epic stories from the ancient world, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join us for more deep dives like this one. Long before the Colosseum echoed with cheers, the first gladiators fought not for entertainment, but for the dead. In early Rome, around the 3rd century before Christ, wealthy families honored their deceased relatives with funeral games known as munera. They believed that blood shed in combat could appease the spirits of the dead. At first, these fights were small, symbolic, and often private. But as Rome expanded, so did its appetite for spectacle. What began as sacred ritual evolved into mass entertainment. By the time of the late Republic, thousands filled wooden amphitheaters to watch men fight to the death. It was no longer about honoring the dead. It was about thrilling the living. By the 1st century before Christ, gladiatorial games had become a political tool. Ambitious politicians sponsored massive shows to win the favor of the public. Julius Caesar himself staged games with hundreds of fighters and wild animals. Soon, emperors realized that controlling entertainment meant controlling the people. Bread and circuses, as the saying went, feed the crowd, entertain them, and they will never rebel. But who were these men who risked their lives for spectacle? Contrary to popular belief, not all gladiators were slaves. Many were captured in wars or punished criminals, condemned to the arena. But others were volunteers, free men, often desperate for money, fame, or redemption. These volunteers signed contracts with gladiatorial schools, known as ludi, pledging to fight for a set number of years in exchange for pay, housing, and the chance at glory. Inside the ludus, life was harsh and disciplined. Gladiators lived under strict control, trained daily under the watchful eyes of professional instructors called doctors. Each man was assigned a fighting style depending on his body type, skill, and background. Some fought with heavy armor and short swords as murmillos, while others moved quickly with nets and tridents as ridieri. There were also secutors, thresses, and hoplomazzi, each with distinct weapons, armor, and tactics. Training was relentless. Wooden swords were used to practice strikes and parries. Balance, endurance, and footwork were drilled for hours under the scorching Roman sun. Gladiators were both athletes and warriors, part soldiers, part celebrities. And yes, they were valuable. Owners invested heavily in them. So despite the image of constant death, not every fight ended with one. A skilled or popular gladiator could live for years, winning battles and building fame among the people. Crowds loved their favorites, chanting their names, cheering their victories, and even writing graffiti in their honor. Some gladiators became so famous that women of high status sent them love letters, jewelry, and even locks of hair. Fun fact, archaeologists have found graffiti in Pompeii saying, "Salidas the Thracian makes all the girls sigh." Another reads, "Crescens, the net fighter, is the heart-throb of the city." These men were the celebrities of ancient Rome, admired, feared, and desired. Yet fame came at a price. Gladiators were property. They lived in barracks, ate controlled diets rich in barley and beans, and could be punished severely for disobedience. Their bodies bore scars, not only from combat, but from harsh discipline. Still, within those walls, camaraderie often grew strong. Fellow fighters became brothers, bound by shared pain and the knowledge that tomorrow, one of them might not return from the arena. On the day of the games, the atmosphere was electric. The crowd filled the amphitheater. Merchants sold food and wine, and musicians played as the fighters entered. Before combat, gladiators saluted the emperor or the host, proclaiming, "Ave Caesar, morituri te salutant." Hail Caesar, those who are about to die salute you. But not all matches were to the death. Many bouts were judged on skill, endurance, and entertainment value. When a gladiator was defeated, the audience decided his fate. The famous gesture of thumbs up or thumbs down might not have been exactly as Hollywood shows it, but the idea was simple: mercy or death, decided by the crowd's will. If spared, a gladiator returned to the ludus to fight another day. If not, his body was carried out with ceremony. Some were buried with honors, especially if they had earned respect in the arena. Over time, the games grew larger and more elaborate. The Colosseum, completed in 80 AD under Emperor Titus, could seat up to 50,000 people. Beneath its floor lay a complex network of tunnels, cages, and elevators used to raise animals, fighters, and scenery. The Romans loved innovation. Some games recreated famous battles, flooded the arena for mock sea fights, or unleashed lions, elephants, and even crocodiles upon unarmed prisoners. Fun fact: historians estimate that over the centuries, hundreds of thousands of animals were killed in Roman games. The sheer scale was staggering, a symbol of Rome's wealth and its dark fascination with power and death. But the games weren't only about cruelty. To Romans, they represented courage, discipline, and the triumph of civilization over barbarism. Gladiators embodied Roman ideals, strength, bravery, and the willingness to face fate head-on. Even in death, they inspired admiration. Could a gladiator win his freedom? Yes, a fighter who survived long enough and earned enough victories could be granted a wooden sword called a ludus. This symbolized his release, a mark of honor for bravery and skill. Some retired and lived as free men, opening their own schools or becoming trainers. Others, addicted to the thrill of combat and the adoration of the crowd, chose to keep fighting voluntarily. One of the most famous gladiators of all time was Spartacus. Born in Thrace, he was enslaved and trained as a gladiator in Capua. In 73 BCE, he led a massive rebellion of slaves and gladiators that shook the Roman Republic to its core. For 2 years, Spartacus and his followers defeated Roman armies before finally being crushed. His story became a symbol of resistance and the desire for freedom, proof that even those forced to fight for amusement could dream of something greater. Eventually, the gladiatorial games began to decline. By the 4th century AD, as Christianity spread across the empire, the moral attitude toward blood sports shifted. The new faith emphasized compassion and the sanctity of life. In 404 AD, after the death of a Christian monk who tried to stop a fight, the Emperor Honorius officially banned the games. The arenas fell silent, but the legacy of the gladiators never died. Their image of courage, defiance, and spectacle has survived for 2,000 years in art, literature, and film. They were more than just fighters. They were symbols of humanity's endless fascination with power, survival, and fame. Today, the ruins of the Colosseum still stand in the heart of Rome, a silent monument to the men who fought beneath its gaze. Their stories remind us that even in an age of cruelty, there was honor, skill, and the undying will to live free. The gladiators of Rome may be gone, but their legend will never fade. If you enjoyed this journey through ancient history, give this video a like, share it with someone who loves Rome, and don't forget to subscribe for more epic stories from the past. New history videos are coming every week, so stay tuned, and as always, thanks for watching.